When a woman takes a man for granted, she convinces herself that his presence will always be there, like a constant background to her life. She gets used to his calls, his texts, his support, and his presence. It doesn't feel special to her anymore because it's always available. But when that man decides to step back, when he removes himself from that pattern, the absence becomes undeniable. The comfort she once overlooked is now replaced by a silence that she cannot ignore. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, but it's powerful. Suddenly she realizes that the very presence she assumed would always be hers is no longer guaranteed, and that shift cuts deeper than she expected. At first, she may not recognize it. She might tell herself that his distance doesn't matter, that she doesn't care, or even that she's fine without him. But as time moves forward, the lack of him begins to creep in. She notices that the person who once shared his thoughts, who once checked in, who once cared enough to be consistent, is no longer doing so. That void creates discomfort, and it's in that discomfort that her perception of him begins to change. She starts to remember how steady he was, how he always showed up when he said he would, how he made her feel safe without her even asking. The truth is, people often don't realize the value of consistency until it's gone. And when she experiences life without it, she begins to miss the man she thought she could overlook. What makes this shift so powerful is that it's subtle. He doesn't need to announce his withdrawal or make a show of walking away. His quiet absence speaks for itself. When she calls and he doesn't answer immediately, when she looks for him online and sees no activity directed her way, when she feels the emptiness of not being prioritized, these are the moments that make her realize that something has changed. The comfort she once had has been replaced with uncertainty, and that uncertainty makes her long for what she used to take for granted. She starts to reflect, often replaying scenarios in her head. She asks herself questions like, did I push him away, or was I too dismissive? This reflection is a natural consequence of losing something that once felt secure. A man's absence doesn't just create space, it creates contrast. She compares how life felt when he was there to how it feels now that he's not, and the difference becomes clear. The small gestures she ignored, his attention, his effort, his time, suddenly gain significance. The things she once labeled as ordinary now appear extraordinary because she no longer has access to them. The irony is that the same comfort that once made her feel secure is the very thing that causes her to miss him when it's gone. His presence, once overlooked, becomes something she craves when it's replaced with silence and distance. That's when the shift truly happens, when she realizes that she didn't just lose a man's presence. She lost a man who brought her stability, certainty, and care in ways she didn't fully value until now. And that's why the moment a man steps back is often the moment she starts missing him the most. When a woman realizes that the man she once took for granted is no longer chasing her, no longer bending over backward to win her attention, it stirs something inside her that she didn't expect. At first, she may feel relieved. She might tell herself that she wanted the space, that she's fine without him constantly reaching out. But human nature has a funny way of reshaping our emotions when what once felt secure is no longer there. The moment he stops chasing, she begins to notice the silence. And that silence often speaks louder than any words could. What makes this moment so impactful is the change in dynamic. When he was always available, when he answered every call, responded to every text, and gave her his undivided attention, she didn't have to wonder. She didn't have to think about him because she knew he would always be there. But when he pulls back and lives his life without constantly seeking her approval or validation, he creates a new reality. Now she has to question where she stands, and that questioning begins to stir curiosity. Curiosity is powerful because it naturally draws people closer. Suddenly, the man she thought she'd figured out becomes a mystery again. Instead of being predictable, he becomes unpredictable. Instead of being easily accessible, he becomes someone she has to wonder about. And this is where the tables turn. The chase she once felt was unnecessary now becomes hers to consider. She starts to wonder, why isn't he reaching out? Who has his attention now? Did I lose something I didn't even realize mattered this much? That internal dialogue grows stronger with every moment of his absence. This shift also challenges her ego. People don't like to feel as though they've lost something they believed was secure. His decision not to chase her anymore is not just about absence. It's about showing her through actions that his self-worth doesn't depend on her validation. And that changes the way she sees him. A man who refuses to chase becomes a man who respects himself. And that kind of strength is difficult to ignore. Instead of appearing needy or desperate, he now appears grounded, independent, and confident. And it's in that confidence that she begins to miss him. She remembers the comfort of his presence, but now it's paired with the realization that he is no longer under her control. That combination, a loss mixed with newfound respect, creates a powerful longing. She doesn't just miss the man she once had at her fingertips. She misses the version of him that now feels distant, untouchable, and valuable. In the end, when a man stops chasing, he doesn't just create space, he creates desire. And that's when she begins to realize that the man she once overlooked is the same man she now finds herself longing for. When a woman takes a man for granted, she often does so because she assumes he will always be there, always waiting, always ready to respond whenever she decides to give him her attention. But when that man chooses to step back, when he focuses on himself instead of endlessly pouring his energy into her, something begins to change inside her. At first, she may dismiss it as nothing. She might even convince herself that she doesn't care, but deep down, the absence starts to echo louder than his constant presence ever did. And that's when she begins to truly feel the weight of what she lost. Now, what makes this moment so powerful is the realization that men who value themselves don't stick around to be treated as an afterthought. By no longer chasing, he communicates that his life has purpose beyond her and that he won't sacrifice his dignity for someone who doesn't appreciate him. This realization doesn't just impact her emotions, it impacts her respect for him. She begins to see him differently, not as the man who once trailed behind her, but as the man who has the strength to walk away when he's not valued. The shift in perception is what triggers the longing. Before, his constant availability made him blend into the background of her life. But now, his absence makes him stand out. She begins to notice the void where his attention used to be. She remembers the little things, the consistency of his messages, the comfort of knowing he cared. And suddenly those things don't feel so small anymore. They feel meaningful, and she starts to question why she let them slip away. There is also a natural tendency in human relationships to crave what we can't easily have. When he was always around, his value was easy to dismiss. But when he withdraws, when he no longer offers himself freely, his value increases in her eyes. It's not about playing games. It's about showing through his actions that he has standards. And nothing is more attractive than someone who lives with self-respect. This realization often hits harder with time. The longer he stays focused on himself, the more she wonders if she still has a place in his life. That uncertainty creates a mix of emotions, regret, nostalgia, and a growing desire to reconnect. She starts to miss the man who was once steady in her life, but she also begins to see him with fresh eyes, as someone who cannot be taken for granted anymore. In the end, it's not his words that make her miss him, it's his silence, his distance, and his decision to value himself over chasing someone who didn't value him back. That's the moment she realizes she lost something real, And it's also the moment she begins to feel his absence in ways she never expected. When a man finally moves forward with his life, focusing on his own goals, passions, and self growth, something profound happens that often shakes a woman who once took him for granted. She begins to see that he is not waiting for her, not holding on to the past, not trapped in the cycle of hoping she will notice him again. Instead, he's thriving without her. This is the moment she realizes he has truly let go, and it often sparks a wave of emotions that range from regret to admiration, because nothing speaks louder than a man who chooses himself over being stuck in a one-sided situation. When she notices that he is no longer available at her convenience, no longer responding instantly, no longer orbiting her world, it forces her to confront a truth she didn't expect. She is not the center of his universe anymore. This can be a shocking wake-up call because when someone assumes you'll always be there, they underestimate your strength to walk away. And when you prove them wrong, the respect they may have lost for you suddenly starts to return. A woman begins to miss a man more deeply when she sees that he has created a life so full, so independent, and so strong that her absence doesn't weaken him, it empowers him. Moving forward doesn't mean hating her, holding grudges, or trying to make her jealous. It means living with purpose. It means going to the gym, pursuing passions, building a career, surrounding yourself with positive people, and growing into the man you were always meant to be. This natural confidence and direction become magnetic because while she once overlooked you, now she sees you in a new light. She notices how your energy feels different, how your presence has more weight, and how you no longer need her validation to feel complete. That independence is what makes her start to feel the loss deeply. At the same time, moving forward forces her to reflect. She begins to wonder if she underestimated you, if she misjudged your worth, if she walked away too quickly from someone who had qualities she now sees more clearly in hindsight. Human nature often makes us want what we can't have, but it's even stronger when we once had it and let it go. She doesn't just miss you because you're gone, she misses you because she realizes you didn't need her to create a fulfilling life. And that's powerful. In the end, the moment you stop living in the shadow of someone else's approval and start living fully for yourself is the moment she begins to feel the true depth of missing you, because nothing stirs regret more than watching someone you took for granted rise higher without you. Another powerful reason a woman begins to miss the man she once took for granted is when she realizes that no one else measures up to the way he made her feel. At the time, she might have overlooked his efforts, his consistency, his loyalty, or his presence because she assumed those things were easy to replace. But as she moves on, she starts comparing new connections with what she once had, and the truth becomes clear. What she dismissed was actually rare. That realization is what often stirs the deepest sense of longing, because finding someone who genuinely cares, who shows up with authenticity, and who provides emotional stability is not something that comes around often. When she is with other people, she may start to notice that conversations don't flow the same, laughter isn't as effortless, and comfort isn't as natural. It might not happen overnight, but over time, the contrast grows stronger. She remembers how you supported her in ways that others don't, how you understood her without her always needing to explain, and how you provided a sense of safety that new faces simply cannot replicate. And that's when the absence becomes heavier. She begins to miss not just you as a person, but the way you made her feel about herself when she was with you. It's in those quiet moments, maybe late at night or during times of stress, that she starts replaying memories in her mind. The small gestures, the attention to detail, the way you made her laugh after a bad day, these things rise to the surface. What once seemed ordinary now feels extraordinary because hindsight has a way of showing us the value of what we didn't fully appreciate in the moment. The thought creeps in, what if I'll never find that again? And that question lingers, creating a sense of longing that only grows stronger with time. This is why self-respect and moving forward are so important for men. When you stop chasing, when you stop trying to prove your worth, you allow space for her to reflect and see clearly what she lost. Instead of constantly reminding her of your presence, your absence becomes the loudest reminder of all. And in that space, she begins to understand that what she once had with you was something meaningful, something not easily replaced, something worth missing. In the end, a woman starts missing the man she took for granted when she sees that the bond she once overlooked was rare, valuable, and unmatched, leaving her to wonder if she let go of something she may never find again. One of the most powerful reasons a woman begins to miss the man she once took for granted is when she sees that he has moved on without her. Not bitter, not resentful, but stronger, happier, and thriving on his own. At first, she might expect that he will linger, that he'll keep reaching out, that he will wait around for her to realize his value. But when that doesn't happen, when he chooses himself and keeps building his life forward, it forces her to confront a reality she didn't anticipate. She realizes he is no longer the man waiting in the background. He is now the man who is creating his own path, living with purpose, and proving that his happiness was never tied solely to her present. This realization hits harder because it exposes the truth. She is no longer the center of his world. And while she may not admit it openly, a part of her expected that role to remain hers even after she walked away or took him for granted. Watching him move on and glow without her presence sparks both curiosity and regret. Curiosity because she wonders what changed inside him to make him so focused and untouchable. Regret because she sees that he has become the man she wanted all along, only now he doesn't need her to validate him anymore. It's in this stage that longing begins to creep in. When she scrolls through her phone, she might think about sending a message but hesitate because she senses that his energy has shifted. When she hears about him doing well or sees him happy, it stirs something in her chest because she remembers the days when she had access to that joy and that strength. The very man she underestimated is now the one who has become harder to reach, harder to replace, and harder to forget. For men, this is a reminder that silence and detachment are not about punishing anyone, but about reclaiming power, rebuilding self-worth, and focusing on growth. When you stop begging for her attention and instead invest that energy into yourself, you flip the script. Suddenly, she is the one reflecting, questioning, and missing. The strength of moving forward gracefully, without bitterness, leaves a mark far deeper than any words or arguments could. And so she begins to miss him not just because of who he was when she had him, but because of who he has become without her. A stronger, more confident, more fulfilled man who no longer depends on her for happiness. That is when the weight of what she lost finally sinks in and she realizes too late that he was the kind of man she should have cherished when she had the chance.